So part of a growth mindset is being able to bounce back from setbacks. Now you may recall that with a growth mindset, it's possible to actually see failure as a sign that we were really trying and not afraid to kind of put ourselves out there. So if we can start to take away some of the fear attached to getting things wrong, then it can really open up a lot of opportunities. But how do we do that? Well, we can start by understanding that the process is as, if not more important than the result. For example, if we have a goal of getting a new job, there'll have been many steps that you will have undertaken along the way, such as refining your CV, identifying job opportunities, networking, and interviews. I know it's defeating to be knocked back, but rather than focusing on the outcome, I didn't get that job, we can choose to focus on all of the steps that preceded it as well. So rather than thinking, I didn't get the job, I may as well give up trying, you can think, well, I've got a killer CV now and I can be grateful for that. So you can celebrate the small wins along the way and practice gratitude for those. We can also turn failure into victory by changing how we think about it. So you could say, well, I think perhaps in the interview, nerves were a factor. So what can I learn from that? Well, perhaps next time I could do a breathing exercise to help with that. So not only can we practice gratitude for the small wins along the way, but we can also learn from our setbacks. Now, I know that is easier said than done. So how can we reframe our beliefs around failure so that we can learn from them?
Let's take an example of a presentation at work that didn't go as well as you'd have liked. The way we respond to adversity is governed by our beliefs, and we can look at three variables: permanence versus transience. So you might say, well, in that particular scenario, I didn't do very well, but I'm sure I will do better next time. Or you might say, I'm always going to be terrible at giving presentations. Specificity versus generalization. So you might say, well, in that specific presentation, I didn't know my course material as well as I'd have liked. Or you might say, generally, I'm just terrible at giving presentations and I'm terrible at public speaking. Internalization versus externalization. So you might say, well, there were external factors that weren't helping me. The room was stuffy, people had just eaten lunch, they were tired and grumpy. Or you might completely internalize it. You might say, I'm not interesting, I'm not an engaging speaker, no one likes me, nobody wants to listen to what I have to say. The consequence of thinking pessimistically about setbacks is that we feel dejected and are more prone to passivity. And this gives rise to a fixed mindset where we believe our traits are permanent and fixed and we cannot improve on any setbacks or traits. Therefore, our fear of failure is huge, and we look to the outside world for approval and validation, which isn't always forthcoming and can be quite disillusioning. Therefore, so often we avoid trying altogether just to avoid the humiliation of defeat or rejection. So we want to get from a state of learned pessimism and fixed mindset to learned optimism and growth mindset, because that is going to release us from learned helplessness and empower us to take charge of our lives. So how do we do that? Well, we let go of our limiting beliefs by making the deliberate choice to focus on something that nurtures us. It could be physical, like the breath or going for a run, or you could engage yourself in a cognitive task. We can choose where we focus our energy. That's not to say we're trying to repress those limiting beliefs or force ourselves to have different beliefs. The truth is, it's perfectly normal to have limiting beliefs. We're all afraid of failure or rejection on some level. And there may even be a grain of truth in our beliefs. Maybe you really did balls up that presentation. Battling with yourself to think differently won't work in that scenario. So if your limiting beliefs really are pulling for your attention and you're finding it hard to let go and focus on something else, it can be tempting at this point to get into a debate with yourself. I don't advise this. Andy from Headspace says, thinking about a problem is still thinking, and I'm inclined to agree. So I would advise against trying to wrestle with your thoughts. The key is that we acknowledge and accept our thoughts and feelings. We're not turning away from them, we're actually letting them in and saying, It's okay to feel like this. It's normal to have these fears. Doing this is actually perversely liberating. And then we can set the deliberate intention to focus on something that is nurturing for ourselves. If it helps, you can ask yourself a pivot question, like, how can I be kind to myself right now? Or, what would serve me best right now? And then go and deliberately focus on something else. The next step is empowerment. Once you've chosen to let go of that limiting belief, we can find the courage to learn and grow. Maybe that's by chalking a certain failure up to experience, or resolving to be kinder to yourself. Maybe you want to come back to the setback later when you feel resourced and consider what you can learn from it. But the key is you get to decide, and by gaining that autonomy, you're enhancing your well-being and you're helping to improve your situation.
So we can feed more positive beliefs around setbacks by asking ourselves the right questions. You could say, how is this helping me? Or what did I learn from that? Or what could this be telling me about my needs and values? So by asking ourselves the right question, we can really start to build much more positive beliefs around setbacks.